The pen hovered over the signature line for exactly 17 seconds. Cream-colored paper, letterpressed, obscenely expensive. The contract sat on the obsidian desk like a coiled serpent. Across from the man whose hands trembled just slightly, Seraphina Voss didn't blink. She never blinked first. Those Arctic silver eyes that had dismantled Fortune 500 competitors and reshaped entire industries remained locked on his face, reading every micro-expression, every flutter of doubt. "Read it again," she said. Her voice was smoke over shattered glass. "I don't need to. You should." He looked up. The dying October sunlight through her penthouse office turned everything to amber and shadow. Seraphina Voss, 33, self-made billionaire before 30, the architect of the Voss empire, a constellation of tech, real estate, and venture capital that had reshaped modern commerce. Forbes called her visionary. The Wall Street Journal called her merciless. Her enemies simply called her inevitable. And now, apparently, she was acquiring a husband for exactly 1 year. Before this continues, if the danger in that room already has its claws in you, drop a comment. Tell the truth. Would you sign it? Because what comes next changes everything you think you know about power. 3 weeks earlier, his world had been small, comfortable, painfully ordinary. Caspian Reed, 29, rare book conservator and archival specialist. He worked in the climate-controlled basement of the Ashmont Library, restoring manuscripts that predated nations. His apartment was rent-controlled chaos in Brooklyn. His social life was non-existent. His weekends disappeared into leather bindings and illuminated manuscripts worth more than he'd earn in 3 lifetimes. He loved the silence, the precision, the way history whispered through his fingertips. He had no warning that his quiet life was built on quicksand. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Not email, not text, an actual letter delivered by a woman in gunmetal gray who moved like classified information. "Mr. Reed, your presence is required at Voss Tower, 52nd floor, Wednesday, 9 a.m. sharp. This concerns your late mother's financial affairs and requires immediate resolution. Non-appearance will result in legal action. Seraphina Voss, founder and CEO." His mother had been dead 18 months. Pancreatic cancer, swift, brutal. She'd been an administrative assistant at a mid-level insurance company. There were barely a savings account. But the letter was real, the building was real, and Seraphina Voss. Everyone knew who she was. 33 and already legendary. She turned a failing logistics app into a global empire in 6 years, built smart cities in 3 countries, sat on the boards of institutions that moved markets. She didn't date publicly, didn't do scandals, just worked, won, and rewrote the rules. Caspian had no earthly idea why she wanted to see him. The 52nd floor of Voss Tower was calculated intimidation, all black marble, steel, and windows that turned the city into an ant farm far below. Her assistant, a man named Silas with a face like winter, escorted Caspian without a single word. Then he saw her. Seraphina Voss stood at the window wall, hands clasped behind her back, surveying Manhattan like it was a chessboard mid-game. Tall, severe, platinum blonde hair pulled into a knot so tight it could cut,
a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his car, shoulders that carried the weight of empires. She didn't turn around. Caspian Reed, statement, not question. Yes, sit. He didn't. I'd rather understand why I'm here first. That made her turn. God, those eyes. Pale silver blue, the kind of eyes that saw through skin, through bone, straight to the parts of you that you hid from yourself. Your mother, she said, voice perfectly level, embezzled $7 million from one of my subsidiary companies over the course of 4 years. The floor disappeared. That's impossible. My mother was clever. No emotion, just fact. Small transfers, randomized timing, buried in legitimate payroll reconciliations. If she hadn't gotten sick and the hospital hadn't flagged her insurance fraud in a parallel case, we never would have traced it. But they did, and we did, and she died before prosecution could proceed. Caspian couldn't breathe. The room tilted. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't. I know. She moved closer. Expensive perfume, something dark and green. You spent most of the last 2 years finishing your master's degree. You barely saw her the last 2 years. You carry no criminal liability. Relief crashed through him. Then why? Because legally, she interrupted, her debts transfer to her sole heir. Pause. You. The relief evaporated like gasoline. $7 million. With interest and penalties. Let's call it 10. He actually laughed. It came out broken. I don't have $10 million. I don't have 10,000. I can't possibly. I know. She reached into her jacket, removed a folded document, and placed it on the desk between them. A proposal. Stop. Right there. What do you think she's about to offer? Drop your theory in the comments, because whatever you're imagining, you're wrong. I promise. The proposal was insanity, wrapped in legalese. Marriage. 1 year. Completely fabricated. In exchange, the debt would be erased, wiped clean. He'd walk away free. Why? Caspian stared at the contract like it might detonate. Why would you possibly want a fake husband? For the first time, something flickered behind those pale eyes. My board of directors. What about them? They believe I'm too young, too aggressive, too, mouth twisting slightly, female. There's a vote coming, a restructuring that would dilute my controlling interest. They want me married, settled. They think it'll make me more, another pause, manageable. Will it? Her smile was razors. No. Caspian's head spun. This is insanity. This is strategy. She tapped the contract. 12 months from signing date, we'll cohabitate, attend functions, convince the board, the shareholders, the press. After the vote passes and my position is secured, we divorce quietly. You get your freedom, I get mine. And if I refuse, she files suit. You spend the next 15 years in litigation and bankruptcy. She tilted her head fractionally. I'm offering you the only exit that exists, Caspian. Take it or drown. It wasn't a choice. It was a certainty dressed as an option. 3 weeks of legal review later, Caspian sat in that obsidian office, pen in hand, and watched Seraphina Voss slide a ring on his finger. Platinum, flawless, cold as her eyes. The penthouse was obscene in its precision. 12,000 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, Italian marble, original Rothkos on the walls, a kitchen that looked like it had never seen food, A library with first editions that made Caspian's hands itch. A master suite the size of his entire apartment. "Your room is East Wing, third door," Seraphina said, not looking at him. Her heels clicked against marble. "Your room is West Wing, end of the hall. Common areas are shared. Everything else is separate." "Separate," Caspian repeated. "This is a business transaction, Mr. Reed, not a romance."
"I understand that. Good." She loosened her collar slightly. "First public appearance is Saturday. Charity gala for the Rosewood Foundation. Wear black. Designer. I'll have Silas coordinate options. I can dress myself." She turned then, really looked at him, and something in her gaze made his skin prickle with heat. "Can you?" Before he could answer, she disappeared down the west corridor, leaving him alone in a palace that felt like a mausoleum. The Rosewood Gala was a lesson in performance. Caspian wore a Tom Ford tuxedo that felt like wearing someone else's skeleton. Seraphina wore black silk that moved like water and smoke, cut to devastate. They arrived together. Her hand rested on his arm, a brand, a declaration. The media descended like starving wolves. Seraphina Voss married? Who is he? Where did he come from? She handled it with surgical precision, smiled her cool, controlled smile, deflected questions with polished non-answers, introduced him as my husband like the word cost nothing. Caspian played his role, smiled when appropriate, nodded, let her guide him through conversations with people who owned islands and influence. But inside he was suffocating. The weight of the lie, the cameras, the way she touched him, impersonal but constant, calibrated. If the tension is crushing you right now, if you can feel Caspian's claustrophobia, Seraphina's control, hit like, because it's about to get so much worse. It was in the limousine afterward that the first crack appeared. Seraphina was silent, rigid, her jaw tight, fingers drumming once against her thigh, the only tell that something was wrong. "You performed adequately," she said finally. "Thank you?" Silence. Then, "My father wants to meet you. Tomorrow." Caspian's stomach dropped. "Your father?" "Unfortunately." Her voice went flat. "Malcolm Voss. He's old-fashioned, traditional. He thinks I need a husband to legitimize me, to make me palatable." "Do you?" She looked at him sharply. "Do I what? Need legitimizing?" For 3 seconds, something raw crossed her face. Then it was gone. "Does it matter what I need?" He didn't have an answer for that. Malcolm Voss was everything his daughter wasn't. Warm, gregarious, a man who'd built his first fortune in oil, lost it in the 90s crash, rebuilt it in tech. He sat in his Park Avenue study, whiskey in hand, beaming at Caspian like he'd won a prize. "So, you're the one who cracked the Ice Queen," he laughed. Seraphina's expression didn't change. "Father." "What? It's a compliment." He turned to Caspian. "She's brilliant, my daughter, absolutely brilliant, but cold, too much like her mother. I worried she'd die alone in some glass tower." He raised his glass. "Thank God you came along." Caspian glanced at Seraphina. Her face was porcelain, blank. "She's not what people think," Caspian said carefully. "No?" "No, she's—" He stopped, realized he meant it. "She's remarkable." Something flickered in Malcolm's eyes. Approval, maybe. "Good. She needs someone who sees that." He coughed. "She doesn't let many people close. Don't waste it." When they left, Seraphina said nothing until they were in the limousine. "You're a convincing liar," she said quietly. "So are you." She looked at him. "Am I?" The shift happened slowly, then all at once. They fell into rhythms. Mornings were silent. Her at her desk by 5 a.m., him with coffee and rare books. Evenings were events, performances, the perfect power couple. Nights were separate wings, separate lives. But something was changing. Caspian started noticing things. The way she took calls from her father even when she was drowning in work. The way she donated millions to arts programs and literacy initiatives without press releases. The way she flinched when people called her cold, like the word was a scar that never healed. She wasn't just ruthless, she was alone. And he started watching her differently, not as his captor, as a woman who'd built an empire because no one had given her another option. He got her watching him, too, in the library, at dinner, quick glances when she thought he wasn't looking, like she was solving an equation that wouldn't balance. Here's the real question. Is Seraphina a villain or a victim? Comment below. Tell me what you see, because what happens next rewrites the entire story. The truth detonated on a Thursday. Caspian found the file by accident, an old folder in her private office, buried in a locked cabinet he'd opened looking for aspirin. His mother's name was on the tab. He shouldn't have opened it. Inside, bank statements, transfer records, emails. His mother had embezzled the money. That part was true. But the rest was medical bills, experimental cancer treatments, clinical trials at Johns Hopkins, Mayo, Sloan Kettering. $7 million in desperate attempts to survive. She died anyway. His mother had stolen to save herself, and failed. But that wasn't the part that made his hands shake. The part that destroyed him was the note clipped to the front, Seraphina's handwriting. Debt forgiven in full. Estate closed. No further action. Dated 18 months ago. She'd forgiven it the day his mother died. Before the contract, before any of this. He never owed her anything. He'd lied. He found her in her office, late. The city lights spread like broken stars behind her. "You lied," Caspian said. She didn't turn. "About what?" "About the debt. You forgave it 18 months ago." His voice shook. "I never owed you a single dollar." Silence. Then, why? Why the contract? Why the marriage? Why me? Finally she turned, and a look on her face, devastation barely leashed. She said quietly, "Because I saw you." "What?" "At your mother's funeral. You were alone, reading Neruda at the grave. And I thought—" She stopped, swallowed. "I thought you were the saddest and most beautiful thing I'd ever seen." Caspian couldn't breathe. "I looked into you, your work, your life. You restored beauty for a living. You saw value in broken things. You were kind." Her voice cracked. "Everything I'm not. And I wanted to know what it felt like to be near someone like that. To pretend for a year that someone could look at me and see something other than a weapon."
"So you blackmailed me?" "Yes." "Trapped me?" "Yes." He should have been furious. He was furious, but he was also something else entirely. "You're brilliant," he whispered, "and an idiot." "I know." "A ruthless, broken, impossible—" She kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't controlled. It was 4 months of wanting compressed into one moment. Her hands in his hair, his hands on her waist, heated anger and something that felt like falling off a cliff. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "This wasn't in the contract," she said. "No? This complicates everything." "I know." Her eyes searched his. "What do you want, Caspian?" The answer should have been simple. Freedom, escape, his old life back. But standing there, looking at her, this brilliant, terrifying, desperately lonely woman who'd lied to keep him close, it wasn't simple at all. "Your truth," he said finally. "The truth is, I'm in love with you." Her voice was raw, unsteady. "I have been since I watched you read poetry to your dead mother. And I'm terrified you'll leave. And I'm more terrified you'll stay and realize I'm exactly what everyone says. Cold, ruthless, incapable of this." "Of what?" "Of being someone worth loving back." Caspian pulled her close. "You're an idiot." "You said that already." "It bears repeating." She almost smiled. "Almost. If you need to know how this ends, if the next chapter is already burning in your mind, subscribe now, because part 2 is coming. And the ending? You won't see it coming." Malcolm Voss died on a Tuesday. Heart attack. Swift. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. Caspian had never seen Seraphina cry, but at the funeral, standing in the rain beside the grave, he watched her fracture. He believed it was real. Our marriage. He died thinking I'd finally let someone in. "It is real," Caspian said. She looked at him. "Not the way it started, but now, this, us, that's real."
Caspian?
He screamed.
Caspian?
"I love you." The words came out steady. "I didn't want to. I tried not to, but I do. And I know you love me. Not because of a contract, not because you orchestrated this, because of who we became when we stopped pretending. And who are we?" He took her hand. "We're real." The divorce papers arrived 6 months later, exactly on schedule, just like the contract specified. Seraphina stood in the library holding them, her face unreadable. "Do you want to sign?" Caspian asked. She looked at him. "Do you?" "Caspian." He walked over, took the papers from her hands, and very deliberately tore them in half. "The contract's over. Your board voted. Your father's gone. The year's up. You don't owe me anything." "I know. So this, us, it only works if we both choose it. Not because we're trapped, not because we're performing, because we want to." She cupped his face. "I want to." "Then ask me." "Ask you what?" "To marry you for real this time." She smiled. A real smile. The first one he'd ever seen that reached your eyes. "Caspian Reed, will you marry me? No contract, no conditions, just you and me and whatever comes next." He kissed her, slow, certain. "Yes." 1 year later, they married again. Small ceremony, just them and a handful of people who mattered. She wore white, he cried. It was perfect. That night, lying in their home, not her penthouse, not his apartment, but theirs, she asked the question he'd been waiting for. "Do you regret it, signing a contract?" He thought about it. The lies, the manipulation, the anger, the love. "No," he said finally. "It led me here. Even though you blackmailed me, even though you blackmailed me." He kissed her forehead. "You're still an idiot. I know. And ruthless. I know. And the life of my life." She pulled him closer. "I know." Outside, the city glittered. Inside, they were home. And for the first time in her life, Seraphina Voss understood what it meant to sign your name and mean every word. This is where it ends, but if you felt something, if this story stays with you, comment 1 word describing what you're feeling, and subscribe for stories that make you feel alive.
Because love like this, it's worth the risk.